How you doing? This is Brad Ensfield of Vicente Alvarado for UCT Direct Fitness. This is your training tip of the week. On this week's segment, we're going to talk about counters to the three-quarter. The last segment we talked about establishing the three-quarter. Now we're going to talk about some of the problems with the three-quarter and some of the counters to the three-quarter and how to transition your three-quarter into something simple as a Darce choke. So we worked on the three-quarter in the last segment. I've reached in, I've turned this corner from whether it's a sprawl or I got it from holding onto the hip. I've placed my hand over top, I've reached in, and I start to establish my three-quarter. Now the key to the three-quarter is taking his head and shoving it down towards the ground or towards the mat. So now that we know that that's the key to the three-quarter, being able to bring my arms together, the counter to this is for him to be able to pick his head up. So the first thing that he wants to do to counter a three-quarter, or you need to do if you're stuck in a three-quarter, is keep in mind, just look up towards the ceiling. As you look up towards the ceiling, it starts to spread my arm, it puts pressure on my upper arm, and it separates my arms. It makes it difficult to bring my elbows together. If I already have you, or you're already stuck in a position all the way down to the ground, just put your hands on your cheeks, just like you're laying around at home or you're reading a book. Put your hands on your cheek and support your head. This will establish the position on your neck, and you'll start to get your head up in the air, and once your head is up, now you can start coming up out of it and break on out. That is the key counter to the three-quarter. Now, working on the counter and knowing that he's going to counter, me as the person putting the three-quarter on, I'm stuck. So now I have to counter his counter. If I get this three-quarter and he starts to counter it and he starts coming up out, you know that he's going to come out and face you. He has to. So the wrestlers will explode up out of this position. He puts his head up, he explodes out, and he comes to a neutral position. This is okay. I'm in a neutral position, but I know that he's going to come up and face me head to head. So if I want to counter this move, as he starts coming up out, I fight it to a certain point, then I let it go, and I get right on the hips. So now I can establish a takedown. As he comes up out, I'm on his hips. I can go for a takedown if I want to be on his hips in this position and go for a takedown. But the key is, I know that he's going to come up and face me. So I have to intercept him before he gets up to that neutral position. He comes up, boom, immediately on his hips, and implement a takedown. That's my counter to a counter on the three-quarter. Now the three-quarter's really common. I see it a lot more in high school, college wrestling. When I watched my son wrestling when he was wrestling in high school, I would notice that the three-quarter was being used, but a lot of times the wrestlers would start out here with a foot in between. They'd start trapping this leg. So they start locking the leg down, then they'll reach in for the three-quarter. Remember, the key to this three-quarter is I want to keep my arms in close, because the farther my arms get away from my body, the less strength and leverage I have. So I could trap his leg, I can hook it, I can pin it, and reach up for the three-quarter, but now it's easy for him to counter it, because I don't have the strength and leverage to keep him pulled in tight. The key to this is get the three-quarter first, then hook the leg and pull the leg into you. Now I can run him over to the side. So I just hook it, three-quarter, reach up, hook that foot, pull it into me, and over he goes. I bump him over to the side. So on this technique where we've underhooked this arm and I placed my hand here on the top of the head, this is a perfect setup for the Darce choke, because now I just extend this arm in there. I sink it in as deep as I can, keep contact with this arm, pass it all the way into the figure four, all the way into my elbow. So I'm pushing as hard as I can, passing it all the way through, put it on the center of the back, and now I extend my body and I can finish this out with a Darce choke. Today we covered using the three-quarter, countering the three-quarter, countering the counter to the three-quarter, and how to turn the three-quarter into a Darce choke. This is Brad Ensfield, Vicente Alvarado for UCT Direct Fitness. This is your training tip of the week.